Growing up in India, so many things were only ever available in the West. And we always used to think, why can't we have them? But today's world, we can always make them at home. So we present to you Rishabh. Rishabh is running an oat milk company in India, which is very new as per my mind. So, let's dive in and let's see what there is. Stick till the end.
Do you all plan to get into dairy products as well, or are you sticking to oat milk?
We are not a vegan company. We don't position ourselves as one.
So 2021 November, you get your product, right? And you don't have a manufacturing setup yet. And it's been a year and a half since then, I think. So you don't have a manufacturing setup. How do you go to market?
We had no understanding of
How do you go from there to the fact that, oh, we are going to start this, to, oh, let's start this, to you're actually back here doing 162 experiments in your kitchen?
we were both very inclined towards doing our own business.
What gave you that entrepreneurial bug?
I think it was kind of ingrained in my system. There was a pivotal point in my life wherein I was way too happy with my life.
Share this with everybody. Get oat milk to everybody. And, get some to us too.
Hi guys, I'm one of the co-founders of Oat Milk. We make milk from oats. We've been in the market for over a year and a half now, and we are the ones who do like plant-based milk beverages. And you might have seen us like in coffee shops or retail stores, or might be like a recently added customer of ours. But yeah, that's what I do now.
So who is Rishabh? We've heard about oat milk and we've heard, we're going to get into that. But let's start with, who is Rishabh?
So I think Rishabh overall, like if I had to sum it up, is a very curious person. I actually was a good student in school, like a good A grade student. Then went to university, studied economics, did honors in it, and then after that, I was actually, like as I said, very curious, right? So I think that has been kind of like the kind of base note for the entirety of my life up until now. And I was working initially within tech, so was looking at cybersecurity and just looking at transformation of business in London. After that, I moved from that into people analytics, completely different field altogether. And who I was actually looking at how gender influences behavior and how we can influence it and nudge it, etc. And now I am like a modern Dudwala here in India, wherein set up like an FMCG business, and had absolutely no idea how to how half the things are made in the world, or even if you've ever like read like a nutritional label on like a biscuit or something, you've got like 1,000 things that go into it. So never really understood that to actually having a product with our name attached to it. So yeah, I think that has been more or less like short stint my life.
I think you've gone the opposite way. Most people want to go from Dudwala to cybersecurity fellow, and you managed to flip that around, and somehow that's just amazing. Because what you were doing, or you give it the tag of Dudwala, but I think it is so much more, just for the simple matter that you are looking into something that today is growing day by day, this oat milk. I mean, I was introduced to it in 2021, and I remember trying it when I was in New York and absolutely loving it. Then I think Manan sent me a sample that he had of your product, and I remember really enjoying that as well. But I've been someone who's relished and loved and enjoyed milk since I was a kid. My mom had this very, she used to say this very often, that you give him a banana and any like curd or milk or anything like that, and he's sorted. He doesn't need any other food. And that was me. I was one of those who could consume milk like nobody's business. And then as age caught up, there was, milk, and the way it works with our digestive system is that there were things about it that didn't start sitting right with me. So I was also like, wait, what the hell? And then when I discovered oat milk, I was like, shit, this is so much nicer.
Yeah, I think I followed like a very similar journey as well. Initially, like I enjoyed milk to a certain degree, but like eventually I realized, like, whatever like a brain of 5-year-old can actually understand was that, a lot of times it's not really sitting well with me. And I went from like, enjoying milk to a certain degree to being one of those kids who runs away when they see milk and their mothers are generally chasing behind them. You have to drink this before you go to school. So I think that was that. And since then, it was always like I kind of had like a PTSD with milk from that point onward, wherein I never really got to trying any of it till I reached London, and one of my friends was like, why do you always drink your coffees black? And I'm like, dude, I don't digest milk properly. And obviously by that time I was a bit more educated and I understood like what lactose intolerance was. Uh, but they actually introduced me to oat milk, and yeah, and now here we are. I think there's a lot more that happened in the middle to get from there to like but yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, Rishabh.
Yeah, so for me, that was not at 5 years old. It was
Sorry.
at 25 years old. I'm saying for me, it was not at 5 years old, but at 25. So
Yeah.
there's the inherent difference there, but I completely understand, dude. I had a lot of friends and cousins growing
Yeah.
up where I was always that kid that, oh yeah, if you're not drinking it, I'm gonna have it. I was always
makes
that
sense.
kid.
Can you explain lactose intolerance to the audience? Because I think in India, people are very hoo-ha about milk, right? Milk is such an important part of a healthy diet, especially like in India. I think because we are not very protein-dependent society in India. We are a very vegetable-oriented thing. So I think milk creeped in as the main source of protein for us with paneer, which is a kind of cheese in India, and now milk. So what is lactose intolerance?
I think so. Lactose, scientifically, if you talk about it, milk has this enzyme called, it's got like a chemical called lactase in it inherently, which our body, like either from day one or like over time, lacks the enzyme to actually break it down, because of which our body cannot digest milk, and because of which you might have like a lot of side effects due to that. Some are mild and some are a bit more intense. So a lot of times you might actually be like, not realize it. Like I think a lot of like, especially in the Indian society, a lot of times it's kind of in your head subconsciously, but you never realize it that, whenever I drink milk or like byproducts of milk, it does not sit well with me. I like, I have gastric issues, or like I'm rushing to the washroom way too often after that, or waking up in the morning with like a bit of a stomach ache. So, or feeling bloated for that matter. So I think a lot of people don't realize that they have it, or that it has developed over time with them. But essentially, it's basically us not being able to break down lactase and giving us like our bodies are intolerant to it.
So how does oat milk solve that? What is oat milk? Because oat, if you think about it, is like a grain, right? And then you see oat milk, almond milk, soy milk, all of these things are called milks. They don't come from animals. So lactose-free milk also, there's this
Yeah.
lactate company here in Canada which sells lactose-free milk.
Even Amul does
So what-
lactose free here in India.
See, and again, we don't know what it is. We just see it on the marketing thing. We see, oh, looks fancy, fancy people have it or whatever it is, right? So how about we dodge that question first?
Yeah.
It looks fancy. It is more expensive. And yeah.
I think so. Obviously, all these other plant-based milks is basically milk that is not made coming from animal sources. It's actually coming from the plants that are proclaimed. So an oat milk is actually oats and water that is actually processed through a very technical process to give a product that is similar to milk. It is potentially equally or more nutritious than milk, and can actually replace all your dairy needs. So that is what oat milk or any other plant-based milk essentially is.
And what about lactose free?
Yeah, lactose free, they basically just artificially introduce an enzyme that breaks down like your dairy milk into a lactose free milk. So the lactase that I'm talking about, they just introduce an enzyme that breaks it down further within the milk itself, and that is what allows people to consume it. However, that kind of like enters your system as a lot of insoluble fiber and other items. So yeah, not very technical. So please, people, like whoever's listening in, don't like get back at me on it. But essentially, that's what's happening.
So you're doing cybersecurity in London, right? And one day you have this milk, you drink it, and you're like, oh damn, this is not milk, but this is milk. Oh my god, my life has changed. So what's the wow moment that causes you to like really gravitate towards oat milk? Firstly, just like specifically, instead of all of the other world of wonders that is there, and then you take this leap. What is it?
So I think there are a couple of things here. I think one would be, say, the whole discovery aspect, right? I think it would be something similar to someone who's discovered like, a bottled water for the first time, where they're like, oh, I can get this so conveniently. I don't have to like use pumps or something. So I think that was the kind of crazy moment, because it went from me drinking like, very intense, like, hard rock kind of punk kind of coffees to actually like, a lot more delicate, and I could actually like experience lighter flavors, fruitier notes, all of that stuff. I could actually like sit with a lot of coffee people and talk about these things. So I think that was the major differentiation in terms of the discovery moment. But I think very similarly to the example I gave, it became a very convenient part of my lifestyle, especially in London, because it was so accessible, and everyone understood what I think. Sorry, I'm kind of going on multiple tangents here, but I think it just became...
No. Go. We want you to go on multiple tangents. It's all good.
Perfect.
The more tangents you go on, the better it is for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Well noted. So I think, it just became like a part of everyday life. It was just very normalized in that sense. Obviously, India has seen coconut milk and soy milk for God knows how long, but it's never really been compared to milk, or actually been a product that you could compare to milk, right? So I think that is what like changed, obviously, in the Western countries, and now we are bringing that back to India as well, that we can actually make a plant-based milk not derived from animal, which is actually good enough.
What was the experimentation process like? So, as you said, it is oats and water put together, right? But I'm sure it's not just as simple as, putting a bunch of oats and water and like, churning them in a mixer and like, that's not the process. I'm sure there's a lot more to it. So how was that experimentation, and how did you get from when you started to now the product that you have?
I think we were of a very different mindset when we started out. We used to, so Akash and I, we met at a coffee shop in London, and we both were like discovered that we're lactose intolerant, and kind of conversations transcended from like, why is no one doing this in India, to why don't we do it? And at that point, we got back home, quit our jobs. We were like, okay, how hard could it be? Like, it's legit just oats and water blended together. You just like, that's it. We bottle it, we sell it, we do wonders. And long story short, that's not how it is. So there's a lot like more things that go into it. I think from the sourcing of the right oats, from understanding like how it behaves with different temperatures and stuff. So say, for example, today, if you were to take a blend of oats and water and just heat it for your, say, after straining it, if you heat it for your coffee, it's going to become dalia or porridge.
Yeah.
So you're probably... So I think like our first kind of like 10-15 oat milks were actually porridge, slightly more liquid, but essentially porridge. But I think what goes on technically is more around like, understanding what actually an oat is made up of, where in terms of obviously the macronutrients, and also like how the protein chains function. Not digging in too deeply on the technical side of things, you basically break down the starch into like simpler sugars. Then after that, you have to understand how the filtration works. You have to make sure that the product is homogeneous. Then you have to ensure that it is shelf stable as well. That today you want a product that can actually sit on shelves. It could not be something that is as fresh as like, just milking oats and drinking it there and then. So I think there's a lot of things that go into the production process and actually developing oat milk on its own. More specifically on the experiments, I think we've actually put in the figure on the website, and I know it so like by heart because like we actually logged every single experiment. It took us 162 of them, and I think it was a tedious process of close to almost 2 years researching oats. So from like sourcing the right grain to like other like kind of calcium and phosphate, we wanted to make a product that was versatile. We want so it could actually be heated, it could actually be cooled, you could make ice creams with it, etc. So all the applications part of things, we wanted it to taste good. So today, like it has to be comparable in terms of mouthfeel, in terms of thickness, in terms of those things. And then we wanted it to be nutritious. So as we've gotten like, obviously say the Amuls of the world have kind of spread that, a milk is a glass of milk is what you need every day before like stepping out. So we wanted it to be as comparable as that, if not like better. So I think these were the kind of parameters we had. And it took us 2 years to actually develop something from like, to go from oats and water blended in a mixie and filtered to actually having OatMlk as our product. So I think that is the more or less the entire journey.
Big button down there. Press the button. We get more likes. You get more stuff.
I actually went vegan for like 6-7 months, and I fell into this YouTube trap of let's try to make oat milk at home and how difficult can it be. And I kept getting like dough. I kept getting like dough balls out of that.
Yeah.
So I can understand on a very, 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 very like upper level that it doesn't work.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
So how did you avoid making this dough? What was your
We did
source
not.
of
We made so many
expertise?
doughs.
No, as in like how did you move on from that?
Climbs. So I think like obviously after a couple of like weeks researching into it, we also got a food technologist on board just to understand it a bit deeper. We had someone from the US actually support us on this, and interestingly enough, we found her on Reddit. But yeah, she came on board, and we actually did a lot of experiments together. We would actually do it in our kitchens, send her pictures, wait for like it to be morning in the United States, and then get a feedback, and then do it again, and just repeated that for like I think 3 weeks. I think she suggested that you need to use a certain kind of enzyme to actually do the starch hydrolysis, etc. And then we got one, and we're like, okay, now it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. We did it, and we're like, nope, nothing. Same old dough that we're getting for the past like 2 months now, dude. What is happening? And then I think like a month later, we found the right ingredients to actually make it happen, at least at a home setup or like a semi-industrial setup. And after that, okay, we're like, okay, we've got it. We've got the bench sample, smooth sailing now. Let's go to a factory, replicate this thing. As it turns out, it doesn't happen like work like that either. So if you've got like a lab setup and you've done the trial at home, you replicate that in the factory, it's gonna be a bigger dough. So it's basically man. Like I think we started experimenting in June. We had our bench sample in September, right? But it took us from September till next year November to actually launch the product. So I think we failed like obviously 162 experiments is at home, and then we failed another 5 times at the factory to have a product that was shelf stable.
So you had 162 experiments from June to September, and then you went to the factory and you had another year or about 13-14 months of process there before you could launch in November of 2022 or 2021? 21. Okay.
Yeah.
And all this also, you're doing all this smack bang in the middle of COVID.
Yes, right. That's correct.
How do you sustain yourself? Like capitally speaking, like it must be eating up money for a year and still you don't know if it will sell. You are like, we in India we say Bhagwan Bharose, we are dependent on God and hoping that everything will work out eventually. I have wasted a year and a half on trying to develop dough.
Yeah.
So how does it go from there?
So I think like it wasn't extremely capitally intensive for us. The manufacturing part, yes. but we have always been very frugal with our like initial capex, right? So all these 162 experiments, we did not hire like an office, have that first, or like have a lab set up first. We were just using like old kitchen equipment. I was actually like saving it out of like kitchen cloths and stuff. So I think at that point we were not, and also because of COVID, right? Like even if we were to order something, we don't know if it's going to come in 3 days or 3 months. So we just like, got our hands dirty and tried to solve it ASAP. In terms of the factory, I would say like we did one trial at the factory in November 2020. And then the second trial at the factory was March 2022. 2021. So we waited another like 4 to 5 months before we spent another like, 20,000-30,000 rupees on another factory trial, because we had to go back to the drawing board, understand like how to do it again. And just so I think our first battle was like, making a product that you could heat. And then the other problem was like, how do you withstand that heat? So like, I think like after the first trial, it was more around getting it shelf stable. But yeah, I think like from a capital standpoint, like we did not spend more than, I would say, like lakh or 2 lakhs in terms of actually basic development of the product.
So where's the money coming in at the time? Like, how are you sustaining other jobs while you are doing this?
We had savings from our jobs back in the UK. So we just burnt all of that in terms of oat milk.
I think that's the advantage of being home.
Yeah, you save on rent, right?
You save on rent, you save on food.
Yeah, true. I'm still like at home. Like I do have an office, but like I'm still like working from home half the time. So still trying to save money.
So apart from the money, how did you all keep yourself motivated? Dude, like
It's very hard.
spending a year and a half experimenting and,
Yeah.
162 experiments, you have success, then you go to a factory, everything fails. How do you get yourself through this?
I think in many ways, I think COVID was a blessing, because it was harder to move on to new things, because a lot of times you would like, the world is kind of paused. So you're like, okay, we've got some extra bit of time lying with us. Like, what do we do? So I think that was one major reason. Apart from that, I think we just really wanted to do it more than anything else. And yeah, like, I don't know what else to say. It was just like, I think it wasn't even like we did not feel like giving up in like moments. Like I remember when we did our first manufacturing trial, Akash and I both got back home after that. On the way, we were both crying. And then once we got back home, we called up a scientist and we were looking at like, trial 2.0. So I think like there was no, like we did not stop. I think if we would have like, we might be like, we would have just gotten other jobs or something like, yeah, but we just did not stop. I think that is what kept us going. Funnily enough.
Did the process of market research come anywhere in the middle of belief? Like, you know how you think something will sell, how do you know it will sell when we do develop it?
I think we had a lot of like market research before we started making oat milk. So we were just understanding like trends and like, how the market is changing. Like even from like a personal standpoint, I left India for the UK in 2014. At that point, I knew, I think, 0 vegan cafes or like plant-based things in India. In terms of availability. Coming back in 2020, I had like 5 vegan cafes in Delhi itself. So I could actually see it both from like a macro perspective from the research that we're reading on the internet, to a more microscopic level from like, the kind of cafes, restaurants, hotels exist. Like it, so I feel like we are still at a point wherein oat milk and other plant-based milk sits as like an add-on onto menus. But I think we're still like, we are moving towards it becoming a lot more normal. As I said, like a bottle of water where you don't notice it. So I think we're just tending towards that as well.
Can you throw some numbers our way for like the current
Yes.
standing of the oat milk market in India?
I think when I came back, it was standing at around 160 crores. The plant-based milk market. Currently, it's beyond 500 crores. And it's growing at over 23% CAGR, I think. So we're essentially like, doubling every 5 months, 6 months. So we are looking at something that's like, obviously, it's not obviously as big as the dairy market, but I think it's like growing at a very fast pace.
You are getting in on the ground floor, so that way you have that advantage.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, how does the price come into play? Like, is it comparable to milk, or how much more expensive is it than milk? And then when does it become comparable to milk?
So, good question. I think so. Currently, we're sitting at 298 rupees a liter. Let's just round it up to 300 rupees a liter, right? You would compare it to 60, 70 bucks of like your normal Amul Taza or something. That is around 4.5 to 5 times more expensive. If you compare it to more like obviously A2 kind of milks, that's around 160 to 180 rupees a liter. So that's just 1.5 times. And if you notice the trends, like, milk prices and other, like, A2 and organic milks are kind of increasing in price, whereas all plant-based milks are working in the other direction. So I think just in a couple of years, we would be looking at a conjunction where they both meet. There's obviously a lot of reasons driving it. But I think obviously we're a lot more expensive, and that is due to the fact that, the demand is like, minuscule compared to how big our dairy loving country is. So as and when more people get aware, more people require products like ours, kind of factories become a lot more adept at managing and producing at scale. And at that point, we actually compare ourselves to milk prices.
The red round button is called subscribe. Press that. It's free.
Oat Milk Bomb actually hit the US also very recently. It actually hit the US like 2019, 18 or so, when Oatly went about like advertising on every bus station and every place you could visually think of. There was like an Oatly box, Oatly ice cream, Oatly milk, Oatly this, Oatly that, right? And that was the real bomb that hit. And then Starbucks had that oat milk latte, which became like super popular. Like their iced oat milk latte is like, I think it is one of the most popular drinks they have on their menu.
Right.
So I think that was their education of the US people, that oat milk exists. Have you faced a crisis or a problem, let's say, of educating the Indian people about oat milk?
Yes, we have many of those actually. I feel like Indian consumers are like the best and the worst. What I mean by that is like, it might be a hard sell to convert an Indian consumer, and it might be a hard sell to convert an Indian consumer. So up until you get them on board, like they might be like, not even willing to listen to you. But once they're yours, they're yours. So I think like that is at least like what my perception of the Indian consumer is. But I think like the kind of problems we faced is on the education part. So one would be like, especially when we started, there was a lot of soy milk and almond milk was on like, everywhere. So when everyone saw oat milk, they were like, oh, is it oat plus milk? Or is this like, is it like dalia? Is it like porridge? Like, do you have it for breakfast? So I think that is where we had to kind of change gears and be like, okay, this is what we're trying to do. And then the second part was, okay, I'm not lactose intolerant. I don't like, care much about the environment or the animals or anything. Why should I drink it? So how does it help me? So I think that was the second part of the education, wherein we had to kind of experience wherein like, it's not just about you being lactose intolerant or you not caring about animals. It's just about a product that is firstly like, you can compare quality, right? The kind of dairy milk that you get, it's not always the best. There is a lot of like adulteration, artificial insemination, etc. These kind of issues that do exist, and that is a like say for example, apart from say Amul or someone, we've got a lot of local players in India. So say for example, I talk about my own city. Namaste India is the one that sells milk here in India. Sorry, in Kanpur. If you talk about Lucknow, Gyan Dairy works. So you've got a lot of local players that kind of dominate regional markets, whereas you would not get one product that is standardized across all markets here in India, which is comparable in terms of obviously health, nutrition, taste, versatility. So I think from that perspective, we are looking at, you know, a product that is relatively superior, if like, and in terms of like you being able to, like, why should you actually consume it? It's obviously like, you know, apart from quality and standardization, we have a product that is shelf stable in ambient temperature. You don't have to, like, it's not going to go bad in 1 month or like 2 months. It's going to stay like the same for 12 months, right? And it is actually a lot more nutritious than your dairy milk, right? It has a lot more protein. It has a lot more fiber. It does not naturally have any fats in it. We actually introduce some good fats to it, like, you know, your omega-3s and like beta glucans and stuff, which is actually good for your body. So we are looking at, like, you know, what dairy was supposed to be. We're looking at, like, you know, an alternative wherein, you know, all the false promises that dairy generally has, like, you know, it is something that you have to consume on a daily basis. It's something that is very nutritious for you. You have it for breakfast. I think that is what we're trying to do.
Can we get some nutrition numbers? Like, can you break down the macros for me? So like, I'm big on diet and stuff. So I want to know the proteins, the carbs, the fats.
Yes, I can compare it to our own product. I don't know about general product, but if you kind of pull up, like, you know, I think the macros in terms of percentages, I think it is around 30% fat, around 28% protein, and I think around 40% of carbohydrates in a glass of milk, right? Of which you don't know how much is impurities, how much is fiber, how much is what, right? For us, it is around like 6 to 7% of fat, around 30% of protein, and the rest is carbohydrates. So, you know, and all of these are coming from oats and oats only. So you know where your nutrition is coming from. It is also high in fiber. We're looking at over a gram per 100 ml. So we are looking at something that is a lot more nutritious, even in terms of numbers, let alone the taste and versatility.
So I was just on your website and just putting some numbers according to what's on your bottle. You say in 100 ml, you have 1.38 grams of fiber, 6.59 grams of protein, 11.05 grams of carbohydrates, 1.56 grams of fat, 250.76 mg of calcium, and 1.39 mg of vitamin B12, and there is 79 mg of sodium.
The comment bar down below. Click on it. Type out what you want to say. Be asked. Let's go. Comment.
This is innate protein from the oats. This is not added on protein by you guys.
Correct.
Wow, that's a lot. Like 1 glass of milk has around 8 grams of protein. This is 100 ml having 6.3. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Do you all plan to get into dairy products as well, or are you sticking to oat milk?
So currently we're just an oat milk company, but I think like we have a lot more in terms of like the vision of the company. We are not a vegan company. We don't position ourselves as one. Obviously, we make plant-based milk, but I think like in terms of positioning, we are a lot more problem focused. So I think like, and within the beverage category, because in the past 1.5 years since launch, we've understood that is what our forte is, like actually understanding the whole research, development, manufacturing, and positioning aspect of things. So instead of looking at, say, dairy products or something, we're looking at solutions to problems. So say you do not have a nutritious milk to drink in the morning, we've got one for you. Whether whether you're health focused, whether you're lactose intolerant, whether you're vegan, so it basically check boxes all the potential allergies you might have, potential concerns, restrictions, whatever dietary restrictions you might have, we have resolved it with one web page. What we're looking at is actually resolving similar issues going forward. So now we've launched a protein drink, which is basically something which is more oriented towards your protein intake, or say a meal replacement for that matter. So we've actually combined all those aspects and doing that in a product. We've got other problems that we're looking at, whether you have hair loss or sleep or other basically issues you might have, we potentially have a beverage for you. And that is what the vision of the company is right now. We're looking at, a one-stop solution to all your problems through beverages.
So 2021 November, you get your product, right? And you don't have a manufacturing setup yet. And it's been a year and a half since then, I think. So you don't have a manufacturing setup. How do you go to market? What do you do next? You just got your product now.
Yeah. So we've lots of cold calling, lots of emails, lots of reaching out to we had no understanding of this business. We did not understand how the market functioned, and it was very easy for everyone to just eat us up, chew and spit us out. It's so easy to do that. So I think for us, it was just a lot of cold calling, understanding. Oh, okay. So that's how you work. Oh, you don't want to talk to me. Okay, we understand. It's okay. So I think for us, it was to understand what works well for us, right? So, and we tried that on multiple aspects. So, say for example, if it's a individual consumer, what we did was Akash and I, we were both on the streets, and we were just making people try our product. 50% of them did not want to try. Obviously, we are strangers, or offering them milk-colored liquids and stuff. So they're I'm not going to try it. But obviously, I think in that 30 seconds, that is our kind of elevator pitch. Why should you try it? What are we doing here? So I think that is where a lot of consumer feedback came. What they like about the product, what they don't. Would they use it? Would they consider buying it? What would be the reasons why they would buy it? Is it the price? Is it the taste? Is it the nutrition, etc.? So just understanding consumer psyche on a very micro level. So that kind of helped us, okay, what would be potential touch points where people would want to have it? Or if there were touch points where the product would be available, what kind of people would be picking it up and for what reason? So once we kind of understood that aspect, we were like, okay, now we know where to be. We have to be everywhere, and we are catering to everyone. And the only difference is it sells to different people for different reasons. So you just need to highlight that aspect for different people. So say, for example, if you're sitting at a hotel, we would just we would make you think about a more nutritious product. If you're looking at a retail shelf, we're looking at a glass bottle compared to all the Tetra packs crowding the shelves, and a minimalistic design that actually pops out. If you're a kid, we actually have a little giraffe on the back for you to kind of engage with. So it's just those kind of little things that we understood and kind of implemented with our product. Yeah. So I think it's just those little things that actually make a lot of difference in terms of you understanding your consumer and the product a bit better. And that kind of allowed us. And also apart from that, with the contractual manufacturing, we had MOQs attached to it, right? So for us, we could not go full-blown D2C. And plus, as I mentioned, we were very frugal with money. So we had to be very careful where we put our money in. So we looked at all potential B2B avenues that we could kind of cater to. So whether that's hotels, restaurants, cafes, offices, schools, that is where our initial focus was. And slowly, once we kind of started building that out, we got some money, we paid a certain few listing fees and got into general and modern trades of the country.
Few words, clarification needed. So one, can you tell me what contractual manufacturing is and how do you get that? Second is, what do you mean by an MOQ? And just the difference between B2B and B2C approaches for your outreach.
Sure. So contractual manufacturing is where someone is actually helping you convert your product from raw material and packaging material to a finished product or a finished good. So they are basically the ones who are doing job work for you. The recipe, the process, everything is yours. but they have the infrastructure to actually convert this product for you. So you get into a contract with said manufacturer to manufacture products for you. The second one is MOQ. MOQ is a minimum order quantity. Obviously, you cannot go to a manufacturer and be like, can you give me 500 bottles? I want to test the market. So I think, so it is basically a combination of utilitarian and operational costs, wherein they're like, okay, you have to meet a certain quantity of product that you would make with me on either a daily or a monthly or a yearly basis for me to actually do that conversion for you or to give you business. So yeah, that's MOQ. What was the third one you had asked?
Your approach to B2B versus B2C, like outreach and product.
So B2B, I think one good sell for hotels was glass. So we always like wanted to kind of stand out in the market and also have a lot of reusable quality to the product. So we did not believe in Tetra packs or like plastic packaging. Obviously, like, I've also had turtles as a pet, so obviously it hurts me a lot. But like glass bottles is what we wanted to do, right? And that's something that is a bit easier sell to a hotel compared to a PP bottle because it looks prettier. It kind of goes with their aesthetic. But our B2B approach was mostly like, just reach out to everyone, understand how these businesses work. Like hotels has a very different kind of food chain compared to a restaurant or a cafe. And what we believed in our B2B approach, most importantly, was to sample it. We understood the fact that, most people would not have tried it and almost everyone would have not even heard about it. That was the mentality we had, that, this is an alien product. No one knows what this is. So we're going to make them, and the best way to educate someone is for them to try it. Once they try it, if they like the taste, then you can have a 30-second conversation with them. Before them trying, they're just going to say, no, boss, I can't do this. So I think like for all our B2B, and still till date, what we do is, hey, we think like, our product is going to sit well with you. Here's a sample. Try it first. If you don't like it, end of conversation. If you like it, let's talk more. So I think that was our B2B approach. For B2C, it was more around like, actually with both, it was more about creating that infrastructure. So today we're sitting in Kanpur, manufacturing in a different city with people working remotely for us and with like cities we cater to. So currently we're in 40 cities in India and we export to UAE and Singapore. And within these, we are working with glass bottles. So we cannot do a traditional D2C model, right? Or at least like we did not know how to do it, because you cannot ship 2 bottles or 4 bottles or 10 bottles of glass, or even when say the volumes increase, say 100 bottles of glass from say Kanpur to a Chennai or a Kerala or a Pondicherry. So we had to actually create that infrastructure of say warehouses and distributors and people who would actually be working with us to do last mile fulfillment. And I think B2B kind of gave us a kind of kickstart, which allowed us to create that infrastructure. And that is what allowed us to kind of slowly get into B2C. Like even if you go onto our website and order like oat milk right now, it's going to reach you within 24 to 48 hours. And the reason for that is that we have that infrastructure that we've built over the past 1.5 years.
40 cities is a lot for like a year and a half. That is crazy expansion. Really, I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Just going back to starting up again. You said you met Akash at a coffee shop and you both bonded over being lactose. How do two people doing cybersecurity or corporate jobs in London?
He was not doing cybersecurity, by the way. Just sorry to cut you off. He was actually a data visualizer for Rolls-Royce. So he was actually looking at engines in the sky, actually data of engines on a screen. But like, it sounds nice when I say sky. But yeah, go on.
So the two of you doing corporate jobs in the UK, living life in London, which is one of the top 2 or 3 most popular cities in the world. A lot of people would give an arm and a leg to be in your position. How do you go from that place to then coming back to Kanpur in India and setting up your, I mean, how do you go from there to the fact that, oh, we are going to start this, to, oh, let's start this, to you're actually back here doing 162 experiments in your kitchen?
Yeah. So I think for both of us, it was just, I think we were both very inclined towards doing our own business more than anything else. So if I talk from a personal standpoint, I was like, you know, I felt like I was turning a bit complacent in my corporate job. I felt like, I could do a lot more. And it was just like, that, life is too short kind of a thing, but in the opposite direction. So I was like, okay, I want to build something from scratch and have complete autonomy over there, wherein I'm actually in the driving seat. I'm actually making decisions. I'm actually like, seeing the company go from 0 to 1. So I think that is where like my motivation personally came from. I think it was very similar for Akash as well. We both are kind of like acquaintances from school, by the way. Both of us from Kanpur. So I think it just like, so happened that we were both like, okay, we'd want to do something of our own. So we spent, before this June, when we had actually come back, I think March to June was the lockdown. And that is when we would sit down every day for like 5 hours and just like brainstorm on what's happening in the world, what are the things that we could do. And I kid you not, we came up with around 20 business plans, and out of which 19 of them were in tech, and only one was Oat Milk. And the reason why we selected this was like, with all these other 19 ones, we realized that, we have to explain our product. Whereas like Oat Milk was the only physical product we could just put on the table and be like, oh, yeah, this is what we have done. So I think that was fascinating. But apart from that, like digging deeper into the market, we understood, okay, this is something that is a lot more future forward. Tech, wherein we get to, like, obviously there are a lot more people who might be a lot more adept than us. But Oat Milk was just, I don't know, man, like I might be coming up with words, but like I think it just felt right for some reason.
We did a podcast with another podcaster very recently, and she asked us that, what do you think is the common theme between all the entrepreneurs you talk to? And at that time, we were not very clear about the answer. But now I feel like both Vishwas and I might have more clarity that all of the entrepreneurs are a little like cuckoo in the head. And that Cuckoo Nest is very important. The people who believe they are going to change the world, right? And you cybersecurity, data visualization, come up with 19 tech ideas and end up, sieving oat milk and water from a sieve and producing dough. And then now you are in 40 from kitchen cloth, saving money.
It took us 2 months to get an industrial sieve, by the way. It was for $600.
And moving from London to Kanpur and not knowing what is happening and what will happen, sitting in the middle of COVID, and now in 40 cities, producing different stuff for businesses as well as consumers.
40
Hands
cities,
down,
3 countries.
3 countries, like it's madness. And I love it. I think this madness is so important. Otherwise, life would be monotonous, right? To just go on. You could still be in cybersecurity, make like good pay, live like a decent life, and then die. But
dude, I am telling you, I know so many people who would give an arm and a leg to be working in London at a cybersecurity company, just, doing their thing and living in that city. And which is why it was even more, what do I say? Why it stuck out to me even more. So my next question is going to be, what gave you that entrepreneurial bug, or what did you see when you were little, or wherever you got this thing that I want to do something on my own? Where did that bug come from?
I think it was kind of ingrained in my system because I come from my family has businesses, right? So come from a background where my father did business as well. But I think like always I've been very independent when it came to my life decisions. Like even when school was happening, like to be honest, even if you ask my parents, they wouldn't know what I studied in economics, what my like major was in, etc., etc. So that way, like they were happy for me, but like very limited involvement in my personal decisions. So I think I always wanted to do something of my own, but I never knew what or how. So I just as they say, follow the rat race. I studied economics because I got the lowest grade in it in school. I was like, okay, this is something I don't know. Maybe I'll get to know better at college. That's why I applied for that degree. Did that, and then I was like, oh, tech is interesting. How about we do cybersecurity? I've never done that. And then go from there to doing people analytics. I want to understand behavior a bit better. So let's do that. And then so I think even the reason why I applied for a job, and I remember telling my friend back in college, I remember telling my friend, dude, I really don't want to do a job. I think I should go back home and do something of my own. He's like, bro, you can only say that if you have a job to not say yes to, right? You don't have a job. What are you saying that I'm going to say no to a job? So I'm like, fair enough. Let's get a job first.
Smart friend.
So,
Smart friend.
yeah.
Let's get a job to get out of the job.
Yeah, he's like, you don't have any companies telling you, get a job, or they
Get
don't have
an
any job
option.
offers. Yeah. So
This is such an important thing, dude. I don't think, I mean, at least I wouldn't have thought about it this way. This is so interesting to understand because this makes so much sense that, when you say that, oh, I do not want to do a job and go back home, you have to at least have a job first. Otherwise, you're like, you don't have any other options, so you had to go home.
yeah, exactly. What are you saying no to? You don't have any other option but to go back home and do something. So I think, I think once I got a job, I was like, man, I'm not confident enough to actually quit all of this and go back home. So I think there was a pivotal point in my life wherein I was way too happy with my life in London. I was like, okay, I have a great job. I have a great life. I have great friends. My manager is not mean to me. My work hours are 9 to 5. I'm living the best of life. So
Let's mess this up. Let's mess this up.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, okay, I'm like, life is solved. It's you die now. What's new? So I think that is when I was like, okay, now I'm sure. Now this is the point. Now I'm going to do it. Now I'm confident. Interestingly enough, I quit my job, I think 6 months before I got my ILR. Not even 6, actually, 4 months.
What's an ILR?
It's an indefinite leave to remain. It's basically like an equivalent to an indefinite visa or to the UK.
Permanent residency, essentially.
Permanent, yeah, PR, yeah, basically a PR. So I quit I think 3 months or 4 months before I got one.
No way.
Yeah, and the only reason was if I have a PR, I'm going to quit at the third experiment, I'm telling you. So I think it was like, I can't have a fallback.
The safety net.
Yeah, he's like, don't be comfortable. I won't do it if I'm comfortable.
Man, respect. Help me. Just wow.
Awesome. You gotta love this entrepreneurial thought
boat
process.
is too stable, so let me rock the boat.
No, let me poke a hole in it.
Actually, it was more like, let's skip the boat, let's just dive in.
Yeah, let's jump.
There's no iceberg, but I'm gonna plant an iceberg and ram straight head first into it, and let's see if I can survive. Wow.
Yeah.
Love it.
Still surviving only. Still doing that.
You're surviving. You're doing well. You're in 40 cities in 3 countries. I think that is much more than surviving. It takes you 15 months, 16 months to take out your initial product, and what? 15 months on, we're in a in this zone, and that is amazing. So if you don't mind sharing, what are some of the numbers that y'all are doing? What are some of the revenue numbers or things like that you are doing, if you were really comfortable sharing that?
Yeah, I think I would just talk about March, because that's fine. We closed March at, I think we did just close to 2 crores. Our first financial year. And I think right now, this year, we are looking to clock around 6 crores. So yeah, so that's where we're at in terms of numbers. Yeah, I think we had obviously a lot of issues like in the first 1.5 years. I think we would have reached this 6 months ago if not for all the failures and issues. But yeah, at least we're surviving.
How many people does it take? How many people do you hire? Like what's the setup size?
So currently we're a team of 10 people, including myself and Akash. It was 3 of us a year ago and 2 of us a year and 2 months ago.
So you launched your product with just the two of you?
Yeah.
To everybody who says that I need to hire people, I need help, I need this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Burn your boats.
So are you all profitable?
Yes, we are. So we are. So I think we were unit economic positive always, but we became like EBITDA positive like 3 months ago.
That is amazing. You are EBITDA positive in a year in a thing which is not even like very popular in the country. It's mad. Where you're giving glass bottles while you could have easily used plastic and like increased your margins.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's all that's left to do.
Yeah.
Where do you see this going? Like, what is your, how, 2 to 6, what is that transition like? Or how are you all seeing that number? Or, you're 3xing in the span of, you're going from 2 to 6, so you're going 3x in the span of one financial year. How are you seeing that? What is the change?
I think it's mostly coming from increased focus on B2C. So as I mentioned that we've been very B2B, right? And we've created that infrastructure to be B2B. Now, the thing is that in this case, our brand is never highlighted. It's always about the product. And that is what has been at the heart of our business till date, that we have to make a good product. We have to make a good product, and no company is going to buy your product if the product is shit. It doesn't matter what your brand value is. So I think we've been able to do at least some bit of that. And now I think like we've just like gotten some money as well. So I think we're going to focus a bit more on the B2C front. And the reason why we're scaling faster is because now we've got that infrastructure, so we can focus a lot and push a lot more on the marketing and sales side of things. And we've also got a couple of new products coming in. We've just like kind of soft launched chocolate protein. So that's going to be like, I think this is just hitting the shelves as we speak. So I think we're seeing growth from all fronts, whether that's channel growth, whether that is location wise, whether that's product SKU, or I think in all fronts we're seeing growth happening and pushing in all directions. So yeah, and we've got a good team to actually make it happen. So
send me samples.
Yeah, of course. We'll reach you in a couple of hours. Just drop your address.
Big and the most important question is, when are you launching in Toronto?
Oh, we've actually sent some samples, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
send them my way, man.
Yeah, we'll do for sure. But I think hopefully, I think this year we should be in the US. Canada, I think hopefully by next year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The velocity at which you guys are going is crazy. You've got to love that.
Yeah, that is superb. Yeah. So when you look at US and Canada, are you looking at setting up manufacturing there, or you're just going to be exporting to them?
I think we'll start with export. We'll understand the market, because like even with UAE and Singapore, like we understand that it functions very differently compared to the Indian market. So I think our initial focus would be to understand what sells, how it sells, where it sells. And once that is done, once we understand, okay, because there might be changes in the product, everything, and we've got our R&D hub here. So once we've kind of established that is when we'll look into contractual manufacturing in these other countries. Because otherwise, what will happen is that we would again be starting from scratch there, where they'd be like, oh, our MOQs are XYZ. And we would be like, oh, damn, we can't do this quickly enough. So I think first step would be export.
And how are you planning on competing with a giant like Oatly?
We're already competing with them on the shelves of UAE and stuff. They've got more money than us, but we've got more fire. So yeah, I think like that's how we intend to do it. And I think it's like we've got a good product, and today I think glass becomes a very major like factor, especially if you talk about like these Western markets, wherein if you look at it, sustainability is a major front. Like recently, if you read articles on Oatly itself, they've gotten major slack for being in Tetra packs, and a lot of people are actually switching to making their own milk, or even getting machines like No Milk, for example, where you can get, it's like an espresso machine but for your plant-based milk. So a lot of people are switching to that, but we would be offering like a more sustainable solution to that. So that is how we intend to. Obviously, like in terms of like price, even Oatly does not have a lot of local manufacturing. They have one in Asia, they have one in Europe, but like when it comes to say specific markets, they still are like exporting. So we would be landing at the same price, if not cheaper. Yes, at least for Southeast Asia, we're going to be cheaper than Oatly in a glass bottle, which has more shelf life. And a lot like it's easier to try because it's 500 ml instead of a liter. So it lasts you like a better life. So yeah, I think those are the major reasons why.
So to close it out, we kind of do this thing in our show that we want a one-line answer from you. And I'm also going to add, I want you to ask a question to the next person who will come on the show.
Okay.
So the answer I want is, to your great-grandchild, one piece of advice based on all of your experience till now. One piece of advice that you would give to your great-grandchild.
Under promise and over deliver.